Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Business Podcast, your source for everything business. I'm your host, Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at @AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, moneymatterstoptips.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today is a very special reunion 2020 episode. What is that? That's when I bring on a guest I had on in the past, and I liked him so much I had to bring him right on back. So today's guest is Tanisha Richmond, and she's founder and a podiatrist over at Richmond Foot and Ankle Clinic. Tanisha, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me back on the show.
Oh, man, I'm excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to talk about business management, taxes, what it takes to run a successful clinic or business in general. But before we do that, let's have you talk a little bit more about what you're doing at Richmond Foot and Ankle Clinic. So tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Well, I'm a podiatrist, which is a foot and ankle specialist. So I specialize in the foot and ankle. I've been in practice here in Dayton, Ohio, for 11 years. I'm a solo practitioner. I do have a part-time podiatrist that works for me. But basically, we are foot and ankle specialists, so I do everything from toenail fungus, heel pain, ankle sprains, diabetic foot ulcers. I go from 0 to 100, so I may see children who are having developmental delays as far as walking, or they're walking pigeon-toed or knock-kneed, or they're extremely flat-footed and their parents are concerned. So pretty much anything with the foot and ankle as far as even rashes. And then, of course, you know, the foot and ankle is attached to the rest of the body. So I always have to try
It better be, ideally, right? Ideally.
Yes, ideally. Trying to figure out what systemically could be causing the problems in their feet, and then usually like referring them to a specialist or someone, say if they're having chronic swelling, then they may have to see like a vascular specialist or a vein specialist to specifically address that issue. So we kind of play detectives all day long, as well as just the routine things that we do in a podiatry practice.
That's awesome. So that being said, today's topic, so business management, what it takes to run a clinic, what it takes to run a business. A lot of business owners learning or listening to this. So some are at different levels of expertise. Some are just getting started. Some have been in business for a long time. That being said, where do you want to start on business management?
Well, I think the problem with a lot of people who start businesses is they just kind of step out on a limb, or they wake up and have a dream, or they just had a lifelong dream, but then they don't put into the time and the research to understand what it truly takes to run a business. Like this is my 11th year of practice, and we're now in tax season. So right now I've been working on my taxes. Well, actually, I work on my taxes year-round, but now getting tax documents ready for my accountant. So the first thing all business owners should have is a QuickBooks account. They should have a business account. So they should have a tax ID number with the IRS. They should be incorporated, which is usually like an LLC or an S Corp. And that gives us legal protection, because we do live in a litigious society that likes to sue a lot. So to protect yourself and any entities that you have, they should always be in their own LLC. So for example, like Walmart's parking lots are separate LLCs from their buildings. So if you fall in their parking lot, you're suing a parking lot. You're not suing the entire Walmart entity. And that's just so to protect the funds of the business. And then that's also bringing in, you have to have attorneys to help you set up all your paperwork as well. And then, so right now, I actually have binders, I have folders where I'm getting all kind of income receipts for the year, all the different payments I get from different insurance companies. I keep all that in a folder. I had to sit down and download all my bank statements from all my bank accounts, send that to my accountant. And then I keep a basket that I throw all receipts in. And then I use a company called Shoebox, which then will scan all receipts, and then I can upload that file into my QuickBooks for my accountant. So you have to always think, of filing your taxes, but then also if you were ever audited by the IRS, being able to prove your tax. And then being a business owner, you have to understand the tax code. So you have to understand, when you hear people like Elizabeth Warren say Amazon doesn't pay any taxes, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
He pays taxes all the time. He may not pay federal taxes at the end of the year because he's paying taxes right now as we talk. I'm sure on something. Payroll taxes, he's buying things. Anything that you purchase, you're going to pay either a state tax or some kind of tax on it. So we're constantly doing right. But as a business, you have to be able to utilize that to your benefit as a business owner. So that's just, it's a learning curve. It's a high learning curve. And I think a lot of people get in trouble because they use these bootleg accountants or cousins who tell them, like someone did tell me the same thing. They told me when I first opened my practice, don't put my stuff on payroll. And I didn't. I ended up owing like $60,000 in back taxes. And now I went from an LLC to an S Corp and put myself on payroll. And sometimes I may pay just taxes and not even cash the checks, but I'm just paying taxes every 2 weeks so I don't get a huge tax bill, or maybe I might get lucky enough to get an actual refund. But I had to learn that the hard way because I listened to a non-accountant who I thought knew what they were talking about, but they didn't.
No, that's great. And let's talk a little bit more about documentation, because I think that's something that gets a lot of people. What you're talking about, Shoebox or the other company you use, because I feel like that's something that many people miss is making sure they can prove it if they were audited or something.
Well, I basically take every year, or I take like an empty printer box or any kind of box, and you want to keep. Or I'm a binder holic. I love binders. Everywhere I go, every Goodwill, every flea market, if I see a binder, I buy it. And that has saved my life. And my accountants love it because, like, I'll put everything from 1 year, like every year's taxes is in its own binder. The paperwork, all the filing paperwork. And I've actually listened to a lot of books through Audible. What is it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? That whole series is awesome because they actually had a book on taxes, and basically they said the more organized you are, if you're audited, the less painful and the least they will audit you because they know they can't get you because you're too organized for them. If you were able to pull out, they say they want the last 5 years, you can pull out a binder from every year, and then you can hand them a box of all the receipts that you use for your taxes in a box and just hand it to them. That makes their life simpler, and then they don't come at you as hard, per se, because they know I'm not going to get a lot out of this person because they're so organized, versus you have nothing to give the IRS, say, if you are audited. But then, and that's how, from reading and listening to books on tapes and things like that, the tax code is built for business owners, for entrepreneurs. It's built for us to spend money on our business, and then whatever we spend on our businesses, usually that is a deduction against our taxes. But a lot of people want to pay for things in cash, and you can't do that. And I will never pay no matter what they do for me. If you come in here and vacuum my floors and I have to pay you for it, you're going to get a check. You will never get cash out of me because I can't prove cash. I can't trace cash.
That's awesome.
But I've had business quote-unquote business owners wanted to do work, and they're like, oh, I'm worried about my taxes. Oh, no, I'm worried about my taxes, too. If I can't write you cannot work for me. Because
that's awesome.
If we don't document it, the business owner has to pay the tax.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's awesome.
So it's a learning curve, and I would say, and there's great places like here in Dayton, we have the Small Business Administration. It's a free organization it's federally funded, and they actually have incubators on site where you can rent little space and start your business. But they have funding where they'll actually get an accountant to work with you, help you set up QuickBooks, help you run reports, help you explain things to you. And then they have a lot of workshops all throughout the year. Actually, I went to one through Google. It was actually a live nationwide live stream where they taught us how to use Google to market ourselves. And it was free. It was a lunchtime thing, and it was like an hour. But, as a business owner, you have to learn all this stuff because as they teach us as physicians, whether we know it or not, they still expect us to know it. And if we mess up, they're going to come at us like we should have known this stuff.
That's awesome. I love it. And I could talk to you all day about this, especially since we're in tax season. But that's about our time, unfortunately. So Tanisha, if somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more about your clinic or to follow up, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, you can always visit my website, richfeet.org. That's RICHFEET.org. You can email me at richfeet1@gmail, which is RICHFEET1@gmail. And then always they could call the office at 937-228-3668, maybe to schedule a time to talk.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Tanisha, it's been awesome catching up with you on this Reunion 2020 episode. Love to hear what you're doing. I'm going to let you get back to what you got to do with your taxes. But before, and to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this talk. If you did, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, don't forget to give that a subscribe and leave us some comments in the video. Let us know what you thought about the conversation, and let's keep the conversation going. And Tanisha, thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much.